Hi, fifth grade. Today we're going to be doing Module 3, Lesson 12, and for this lesson, we are still going to be subtracting fractions in the same way that we've been kind of doing it before from Lessons 11. So what we're going to be doing today is, for our very first problem, we're going to take a look at these two problems. I know they look very similar, but you'll notice that our denominators are kind of flip-flopped in both of these problems. And we're going to talk about how subtracting different amounts can give us different looking answers. So we're going to start off with this one, 1.5 minus a fifth, because that is what's on your paper right now. And we're going to start off by making this a mixed or an improper fraction. So I have a mixed number, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to think of this whole number as 2 halves, because I can just think of 2 halves is like the whole number. And then I have 1 half left over. So I think about if I have 2 halves plus this 1 half, that would give me 3 halves. And then I can subtract my 1/5. So over here, I'm just going to subtract these like I normally do. And I'll set these up in parentheses so I can create my equivalent fractions. I know that the LCM of 2 and 5 is just 10. So I need to think about what can I multiply both of these fractions by so that my LCM is 10, or my denominator is 10. So we have 2 times 5 over here, which gives me 10. 3 times 5 on the top gives me 15. 1 times 2 is 2, and 5 times 2 is 10 as well. So then my final answer, because now that I have those common denominators, I can subtract. So I have 15 minus 2, which gives me 13 tenths. I don't like 13 tenths though, so I'm going to change that into a mixed number, which gives me my final answer of 1 3/10. Now, you may think that this problem is going to have a very similar answer, and it's still going to have a denominator of 10, I'll tell you that, but our answer is going to look really different. And I want you to kind of think about why. If you want to write this down, you can, but I want you thinking about why our answers are going to be different, just because we swap the numbers in the denominators. So for this one, we can think of 1 as 5/5 plus 1/5, which gives me 6/5 minus a half, and you can already see that the improper fraction we created is very different. And then we're going to multiply to create those equivalent fractions. And just like before, I know that my LCM between 5 and 2 is just 10. So I'm going to multiply this side by 2 this time, and I'm going to multiply this side by 5. 6 times 2 gives me 12. 5 times 2 gives me 10. 1 times 5 gives me 5, and 2 times 5 gives me 10. Again, I have the denominator of 10, so I know 10 is going to be my denominator, but what is my numerator going to be? So I have 12 minus 5, which gives me 7, and now you'll notice that we have 7/10 as our final answer. So just because we flip-flop these numbers in the denominator gave us different answers. And what I want you to think about is if you were to imagine like a number line with this problem, if I just have 1.5 minus a fifth. The fifth isn't that much that I'm subtracting. Now if I'm taking 1.5 minus a half, that is going to be a lot more that I'm subtracting, and that is why our answer is so much smaller over here. So that's just something you keep in mind as you are subtracting the different problems throughout your problem sets. So we're going to go ahead and erase this, and we're going to be moving on to our next problem, which is 1 3/4 minus 6/7. Again, I'm going to change this mixed number right here into an improper fraction. So you've seen me do it this way before, so I'll create a whole number in fraction form from 1. So I'll have 4/4 since my denominator is 4, plus 3/4, that gives me 7/4. Remember, I can also use that strategy that we learned from yesterday. I could do 1 times 4, which is 4, and 4 plus 3, which is 7, and then write my denominator of 7/4. So that you have 2 different ways of creating that. And then we have 7/4 minus 6/7. For this one, now we're going to put that problem in my parentheses so I can create those equivalent fractions. And so I can have that common denominator, because right now I do not. When I look at the numbers 4 and 7, if I were to find the LCM of that, that would be 28. So I just need to multiply by the denominator on the other sides. So I'm going to multiply this side by 7 and multiply 6/7 times 4. Now that I have this set up, I can start multiplying. So I have 7 times 7, which is 49, and 4 times 7, which is 28. Then over here, I have 6 times 4, which is 24, and then 7 times 4, which is 28. Now we have 49 minus 24. I'm going to show you how we can do this problem in our heads. So to start off by doing this in our heads, I'm going to take a look at my ones place. And in my ones place, I have 9 minus 4. I know that 9 minus 4 is 5. So over here in my numerator, where my ones place will be, I'm going to write that number 5. Then I'm going to do 4 minus 2. And that is 2, and that was in my tens place. So in my tens place over here, I'll write the number 2. So that's just a way that you can do quick mental math if you'd like. If not, you can always set up 49 minus 24 like that, and then subtract. Now, my denominator is still going to be 28, so my final answer for this one is going to be 25/28. You can think about if you can simplify this one, but the only things I can divide 5 by are 1 and 5, and I can't do 28 divided by 5, so my fraction is now simplified. We're going to move on to our last problem together for this lesson, and this is going to be 3 and a fourth minus 2 and a half. So just like before, what we're going to do is we're going to start off by subtracting the whole numbers. So we do 3 minus 2. That gives me 1 and a fourth left over minus a half. And just like in the previous lessons, I'm going to have us change this into a improper fraction. So remember, there's two different ways I can do this. I can think of this as 4/4 plus 1/4, which gives me 5/4. Or I can go 1 times 4, which is 4, and 4 plus 1, which is 5. And then I could rewrite it as 5/4 as well. So then we do 5/4 minus 1/2. And this is one of those problems where it's going to try and trick you, because when I go to set this up in parentheses, you might think you just need to multiply by the number on the other side, but remember, we find that LCM sometimes, especially if both numbers are even, to see what we should multiply it to instead. So if I have the numbers 2 and 4, I'm going to count by 2's first, so I count 2, 4, 6, and then if I count by 4's, 4, I'll notice that my LCM for these is not going to be 8 like you might try to do, it's actually 4. So with 5/4 over here, since my denominator is already 4, I'm going to leave it like that. I'm going to leave it as 4, so I'm going to do 4 times 1, 5 times 1 on the top. And then over here, this is the only number that I need to change. So if I have a half and I need to make it a fourth, I'm going to do a half times 2. And then I can get my new equivalent fraction. So I have 5 times 1, which is 5, 4 times 1, which is 4. Subtract over here, 1 times 2 is 2, and 2 times 2 is 4. So now I have 5/4 minus 2/4. 5 minus 2 is 3. And then my denominator stays 4. 3/4 is a proper fraction, and it is a simplified fraction, so I don't need to touch it. And that is the end of this lesson. So on the back, you have one last you-try problem for Module 3. So you're going to be doing 4.5 minus 3 2/3. And then after that, you can get started on the problem set or try out the exit tickets. Let me know if you need any help, and good job today, 5th grade.